Hi, I'm Dibley, and in this video I'm going to turn one of these Dapol Kitmaster Presflo Cement Wagon kits into this. Oh, hang on, no, that's the Backman one. No, more like this. So before we can start with this kit, I should probably run through a few of the bits and pieces I'm going to need. I'm going to have some Revel contactor. I think it's called contactor. Oh, yeah, contactor professional. I'm going to need some super glue. I'm going to need a 10-gram alloy wheel weight. Probably want a little pokey stick for poking holes in the end of the super glue, because I'm sure that will bind up loads of times. A couple of pin vices, a selection of drills that are appropriate to the wire that I'm going to use. A little sanding stick or a few, some sandpaper. A bunch of jigs that I've designed. I'll come on to these jigs a little bit later. Probably want a 345 block, or whatever that is. 345, 1, 3, I don't know. 1, 2, 3 block. Oh no, 1, 2, 3 block. And probably my blue mamba wagon holder. That's available from Dave at Punter's Yard. Not this top bit, I've made that myself, but certainly the magnetic holder is. Sorry, nice plug for you there, Dave. Right, some other bits I need is some 0.7mm wire and some 0.4mm wire. This is jewellery wire. I think this is just garden wire. It depends what size you want to actually go for your pipes and handrails. You might have different size wires. That's the wire that I have available, so that is the wire that I'm going to use. Right, let's crack on. So I've done a fair few of these kits now, so I've got a fairly good idea how it's going to go together. So I'm not going to follow the instructions totally because I want to modify some parts on the way. I'm going to have to build it in a slightly different order, and I will be using the jigs to drill holes in the correct places. So the only bits I will be looking at the instructions for will be just to make sure I orientate the hopper the right way around, and a few little bits like that, because I'm quite easily going to get it wrong. So, but apart from that, we'll crack on. Right, my next step is to take all the parts off of the sprues and clean all the edges, straighten any parts that are not straight. For instance, we can see buffer beams here have taken a bit of a beating. So I'm not going to show that on the camera because that's like washing paint dry. Once everything is ready to go, I will be with you again. One thing I did want to say, to get a slightly more snug fit between the hopper pieces, I find it is prudent sometimes to just take a little nip out of these parts here. You don't have to do it all the time, but just the way some of them fit together, you just end up with a slightly tighter fit. Oh, I also forgot one of the tools I needed. Definitely will be using the odd needle file for filing stuff away. Once I've built the bottom of the hopper, I then like to put in a 10-gram alloy wheel weight. Normally these have got their own sticky back, but unfortunately this one's already been on something before, so it has not got some. So I'm going to have to use some Yoo-hoo, which I also forgot to say at the start of the video. So I'm just going to put a little blob on there, and then I'll pick it up with the tweezers, which I also forgot to say at the start of the video, and we'll just chuck it in. Hopefully somewhere central-ish. There we go. Hopefully something like that. Just give it a little poke in there. That should be good, and we'll leave that to go off. Once that's gone off, we can probably fit the roof. Once the hopper is built, we'll move on to the chassis. I'll probably do all the little bits later on. So using some boiling hot water, I've warmed up the buffer beams and the sole bars, and I've straightened them out the best I can. They normally come pretty bent in these packets. There's also a lot of flash around the ejector pin marks, so I've been filing those out as well. The buffer beams also need a little bit of filing. We'll get that done and then we'll start assembling the chassis. After that, the chassis is built, or just the main parts of the chassis, so the sole bars, the two end plates and the buffer beams. And I'll just put it down on a bit of track, make sure We haven't got too much corner to corner rocking. Hopefully by the time the cement goes off it will still be like that. Next up, I do these little webs, and I have to refer to the instructions every time on these because I forget they have these little plates on them and they only go in one particular orientation. They are all numbered if you leave them on the sprue and don't take them off all in one go like I normally do. Anyway, let's fit those next. Try and make sure they are upright as you possibly can. So once these webs are cemented, this is where we start to go off-piste. And for that, we need to use one of my little jigs. Now I mentioned these earlier. I will be making these available either on Colts or Thingiverse or somewhere like that so that people can download them and use them themselves. I've cut mine from LaserCard. But you could cut yours from Plasticard or whatever you require. So to get the position right, we position that up against the back, and then that line, that hole there should be in line just with the edge of there, and the same with that one. So I'm going to put my finger on there and I'm just going to mark through both those two holes, and then I'm going to drill through. This is with a 1mm drill, but I'm going to use some 0.7mm wire to be the pipe. So I could do a slightly smaller drill, but I'd rather not be fighting with it, trying to get it in the hole. I'll drill those and then I'll bend up the pipe. So the pipe is going to come out of there, run along here and run along the edge, right angle and then right angle down there. And it runs along the edge which will have the valves on it. So the first thing I'm going to do, just using my pair of tweezers, is just put a little right angle on the end. Now I need to kind of straighten this out the best I can because my wire's a bit bendy. Your wire may already be straight, which will be really nice. And then once I've got that done, I'll place it in the hole if I can, and then I'm going to mark with the tweezers where I want that bend to be, making sure it's still pointing downwards, and I shall drop it like that. Right, making sure still pointing downwards, and put a 90-degree bend on it. Probably slightly more than a 90-degree there, but we can tweak that back out. If you end up twisting it a little bit, that's fine, it's not a problem. Depending on your wire, you should just be able to twist it quite easily like that. Hopefully we'll pick the hole back up. We'll just double check. Yeah, that's going to come across there quite nicely. So now I can use my little jig for alignment to make sure we end up with stuff in the right place. And then bend that round, and that should be fairly good by the time we've squared that up, hopefully. With any luck, that will be, it's going to be pretty much there. That's good. So the next bit, probably should actually make another jig for this really, because I'm going to have to make quite a lot of these. Might see if I can do another one that actually has the holes in the right place for when you've bent the wire. But we can probably simulate that quite easily just by making sure when we put the wire in there that we're fairly parallel. Oops. And then if I bend, oops, not like that, I can bend it down. I'm just going to bend this off camera and then I'll show you. I've just found out quite a happy accident. The actual distance that you need to do for the pipe, outer edge of the pipe to the outer edge of that, outer edge of the bend to there. Perfect. So I actually don't need to do a jig, I just need to try and remember that. So the next thing to do is try and put this in the holes, which it should do, should go in, and it's a little bit fiddly because I'm trying not to get my hands in the way of the camera too much and doing quite a poor job of that. There we go, that's one in. Let's just try doing the other one in. You might just have to square up your pipe a little bit There we go. That's in. Right, I will super glue that in next. As you can see, that's how it's going to go. Then it runs along the front there. Probably need to put a little bit of super glue down there. We can't use the contact adhesive. Or you could do, I mean it will melt the plastic, but I haven't found a lot of luck with that. I think super glue will probably be what I use there. I'll show it after it's done. Okay, hopefully you can see the pipes in there now. I find the best way of applying the super glue is to put a blob onto a block of something, get it onto a little bit of wire, and while you're holding that bit of wire with a pair of tweezers, blob the super glue where you want all the contact areas, and then do it that way. Then you don't get so much super glue all over the model. I'm sure you have your own techniques, but that's the technique I use. Next, we need to have a look at doing the little handrails that go, let's just make sure I'm talking at the right end. So the handrails go down here. So we have got a jig for that. So I will get that out and we will we will drill those. So the next task is to drill the little handrail holes. Handrails we're going to make with some bambi staples. Now here's the little jig. It's a 2-part jig with an, I don't know if you can see there's an offset on there with some holes drilled in it. It just slides onto there, and when it's in the right place you can hold it, and hopefully without it flicking up, then just run. I'm going to need to extend the drill out a little bit just so it passes the bracket. Hopefully my finger is not too much in the way. I'm just gonna, oh, not like that, I'm gonna do this off a camera because I can't really do it and hold it at the same time. So after using the little jig just to sort of spot the holes through, then just using the pin vise, just drill the hole out. I don't think you need to go all the way through, but you obviously, oops, I have gone all the way through now. As you notice, I've taken the wheels out because it was rolling around and actually being a bit of a pain in the neck. This one will probably go through in a sec as well. There might be more plastic actually in the, there we go. Right, I'll do the other side. Now, I'm not going to lie, this bit's a bit fiddly. So we've got some bambi staples. I just need to snap one off of this bunch. There we go. And what we need to do is we need to shorten it so it'll be the right size. Now, I'm lucky. My tweezers are about the right sort of size, so by the time I've put that round to there, we should find that should be about the right size if I could only hold it to go in. There we go. Right, so I'm going to cut the legs off now, make them fairly even. I'll do 2 of those, 1 for each side. When you finish cutting them and bending them up, I don't know if you can see them there, I've made 2 there and they are exactly the right spacing to go across there. So these, once they are glued in, should, if I can get this in, should fit in there. And we'll glue them in with super glue. When you've finished, it should look like that. You just want it to stand proud a little bit. To be fair, about the thickness of your tweezers, or the part of your tweezers, is normally about right. That one's a little bit lopsided, but it's stuck in there now, so I'm just going to have to live with that. I'll just treat it as a little bit of damage. Right, the next thing we need to do is, using one of the other jigs, if I can find it, is the lamp iron brackets. Now that goes on this end, so it's the same kind of process, but this time you're only drilling a single hole, which will be on each side, sorry, single hole on each side, one there and one there. So I'm going to crack on and do that. So now we've got those 2 holes drilled on either side, we need to make up a little lamp iron. So again, I'm going to use another bambi staple and snap this off. Do go careful when snapping these off. I had one ping past my ear a minute ago. Probably better past my ear than Oh, I've got two together there, great. Then in my eye, thankfully I am wearing glasses, but do be careful when snapping these off. Oh, probably going to struggle with this now. I'm going to try and snap another one off. We'll come back to that one later. There we go, got one off. Right, so we're going to start off with the whole length of the leg there. We're going to kind of go, oops, I've hit the camera, great. We're going to aim for about just about halfway, and then we're going to put a right angle kink in it. So now we've got one of those. And then, oops, if the drill doesn't follow, we just want about the same distance either side, and we'll cut that off. And we'll knock stuff all over the place. Right, so now hopefully you can see we've got a little sort of like S shape. And what we want to do is we want to have the outer part most outwards. I've got a little bit of glue here, so I'm just going to give it a little slop. I'm actually going to do this side first because the way it's all gone round, it's going to make life easier. Poke that in that hole. Try and get it so it sits on there. Oops, nice and flush and not in the wrong angle like that is. Try and get it round so it is at the right angle. Not sure if I've put enough glue on it, to be honest. While that's possibly gluing, but may not be, we'll have another go at doing the next one. You do end up with lots of little shards all over the place, I'm afraid, when you do this, so do go careful. So again, we're going at half the distance, and I've hit the camera with my head again. Oops. Crank it round to make the little kind of S shape. We're going to chop a little bit off just to even them up. Make it about the same length. Might be a little bit long. There we go. That's probably a bit short. Right, just try and correct it a little bit because it's slightly out of shape. Right, we're going to try and see if we can do this side now. Let's get the glue and try and get some on the bottom part. Again, might be easier just to do it with a bit of wire. Get that in that little hole, and then oops, and then hit it around and move it to where you don't need it, of course. Hold it down, and hopefully that'll be somewhere near. Probably should have done that one a bit tighter. That is a bit big, that one, and this one here hasn't glued, so I'm just going to lift that one back out. Oh, it has slightly glued. Excellent. Right. All I really need is a little bit of thin plastic now that I can slide a bit of glue on, which I haven't actually got any here. A bit of paper. So this is a technique I use for things like that. So I've got some glue on there. I'm just going to slide that on there. And hold that down. And hopefully that'll do it. With any luck, the one on this side has glued. No, that one's not much better either. Excellent. Let's just do that again then. So, with a little bit of paper on your glue. So we've got some super glue now on that side. So I'm just going to rub that in around there. I've actually managed to get it on there, which is not great. And then just push that down, hopefully in the right place. I mean, these are not perfectly to scale. I'm not going to pretend that, but my way of thinking is something is better than nothing, and that will be the same with the lamp irons that we're going to put on the buffer beam as well. Anyway, that's a bit of a pig's ear, and I expect my hand was in the way for most of that, but there you go. So the next bit is the lamp iron for the buffer beam. Now, looking on Paul Bartlett's site, sometimes they do appear to be on the same side as the vacuum pipe. Now, I'm not too worried, to be honest, so for the sake of my models, I'm going to put it on the opposite side. So I've got a bradawl here. I'm just going to find a point in the middle of those two bits and in the middle of the buffer beam, and I'm going to put a little point in there. Then I'm going to use one of my smallest drills just to actually drill all the way through based on that point. So that's like a center punch, that point. So this small drill's really quite sharp actually, and it does cut through nice. So we should get through any second. Any second. Possibly, maybe any minute. I don't want to push too hard, you see. Not sure why we've not gone through. Oh, I see, because it's right into the chassis there, so I'm just going to stop there because that's actually into the chassis, and then we're just going to open that out with this drill just a little bit. I've got a feeling I'm actually drilling with a slightly too big a drill. Probably could do with a slightly smaller one really. This one, to be fair, what I might do is I might use the contactor because it will melt the plastic, and then I might just push the bracket in. But basically we just make a tiny little L bracket out of the bambi staple. I don't know if you can see that, there we go. And that is what we're going to use for the lamp bracket. So having had another go, I've just remembered what I actually did. So that's basically a bambi staple cut in half. So I've done the very small hole all the way through and then a slightly larger hole just to start it. Then I've used a bit of the contactor just to start to melt it and then push the staple in. And then once it's gone off fully, just trim the top of the staple. That's not gone off fully, so don't do that. Oh yeah, also don't push it in all the way. Just push it in so you can still get a blade of your tweezers in behind, especially if you want to use Model U lamps or something like that and you actually want to hook it over. Once that's fully gone off hard and solid again, then if you've got a half decent sharp pair of cutters unlike these ones, you should be able to cut it off flush with the top, and that will probably do that. So off camera I've added the 5 pieces to the top of the hopper itself. I've also given it a good sand, tried to sand and blend some of those edges, not overly well. You can probably see the sparkle from the glass fibre pen. This will all need to be washed at some point. Anyway, the next process is we need to drill a hole or a couple of holes in the top of here. I just realised my jig is not going to work because of the orientation of the roof. The last one I did, the roof orientation was the wrong way. So I need to make some modifications to the jig first. Okay, back again after modifying the jig by making some little cutouts. I'll have to change that on the design of the jig. Right, so now using this little jig, holding it to the ends of the top of the silo or whatever you call it, hopper, just going to spot through here. This one needs to be a very small hole in the final one, so we don't want to drill too much there. And then just spot through there. Oh, that's actually already gone through. I think we've already drilled. Yeah, we've already drilled all the way through on that one. The other one I don't want to drill too much through because I want to use very small drill for that one. There we go. We also want another hole in here, and it's basically, as you can see, just inside the outer edge of that top cover, or walkway rather, and then halfway between the walkway and the edge. So I probably want to do it just about there. Just going to eyeball this. Probably not a lot of point in having a jig for that one. I might be able to make one, but I think this one's probably fine. This is going to be a bit harder to drill because it's going to go down into the upright part of the hopper. Let's clear the drill. That's gone in quite a way. That should be enough. Right, so that's the holes drilled on the roof. Some other bits and pieces that we have done off camera is we've put the 2 air tanks on there, so that's done. Another bit to do now, if you look at the Bachmann wagon, there is a little lever on that plate there, so we can emulate that again with a, if I can find my spike, with a bit of a bambi staple. So I'm just going to put a little spike in there and in there, and then drill that through with the very fine drill. Do the same on that one. Find my little spike hole. Hope this is on camera. Wonderful. Right, okay, and then we need to cut a little bit of bambi staple to go all the way through right up to there, so it will fit perfectly in there. I'll probably do that off camera and then show you how I fit it afterwards. Right, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I basically cut the bambi staple in half, and that should be about right. So we're just going to put a tiny little blob of the contactor on there so it starts to soften the plastic, and then hopefully that will soften the plastic enough to be able to push the bambi staple in through the hole. I just need to grab that a little bit firmer. We want a very slight angle on it. There we go, it's lovely, look at that, straight in. So we want a slight angle just so it leans back, or it leans towards the centre a little, and I should do that on the other side as well. You can see it's at a slight angle, and you can see, hopefully you can see the bar travel right across and touch that support plate. The next task is to use some of the little jigs to bend the wire. So the downpipe needs to be slightly bigger, so that's 0.7 for my wire. And then we've got the two little handrail jigs. So as you can see, I'm just starting to, so I can find, there you go, hopefully that's got some focus. Starting to bend the wire, and we need to match the jig. So once I've bent that to match the jig, I can then have a look at how we fit those. Okay, so that's those bent up. I did them off camera because I'm not going to lie, they are fiddly AF. Right, so the downpipe, oh no, we can't do the downpipe yet, I'll come on to something else first. So the handrails, what we need to do is, in line with where you've drilled that hole there, we need to come down onto this gusset, or whatever it is, sort of flange or gusset here, and put a dot in there. And then you need to do the same with that. Judge by eye, try and get it as accurate as you can. You could measure it, I guess. Get a little dimple in there. It needs to be close enough into the body so that it doesn't, when you drill it, it doesn't split out into there. So I'm using my 0.5mm drill. Not that one, I'm not. That is not the 0.5mm drill. I'm going to use the 0.5mm drill to go, if I can pick up my little dimple. There we go. And we want to drill, oops, that's not helped. Let's try and steady the camera. We want to try and drill so your drill is at the same angle as that there. It doesn't help, I've got a slightly bent drill, which does not help at all. Just drill that through, careful, be really careful not to burst through the flange or gusset, because that will ruin your day slightly. I'm going to have to try and straighten this drill, it's really not working very well. Let's try again. They're so small, the drills, you can literally do it with a pair of pliers. There we go, look, much better now. So there we go, we're through. As you can see, we haven't burst through the actual gusset. So again, try and drill again so you match the angle of that bit down there. Can't really see what's going on obviously, because yeah, the side of the Okay, that would help, but I can't get the angle right if I hold it at that angle. There we go, we're through. You can see we're through. Wonderful. Probably a bit of clean up with a knife just to get rid of where it's, oops, hit the camera again. Still hit the camera, sorry guys. Just clean that off a little bit. And that's where we're going to put the handrails through. I'm going to fit those off camera because they are fiddly. One thing to do, you can set the height of it when you've put it in. You can set the height using half of your let's see if I can do it actually. Try and do it on camera if we can, if I can get them out of the jig. There we go. So if you hold that like that, then you can get the top in there, and then you have to fiddle the bottom in, and you might be able to do the bottom first, don't know. I normally put the top in first. Then, am I still on the camera? Yeah, just about. It is fiddly. It's even harder when you're trying to not get in the way of the camera. There you go. So it's going to be like that, and then you're basically looking for something around that. Let's just see if it will focus. I don't know if you can see the height. You know, you want to just poking out a little bit. I'm probably going to do that with super glue. I think. And the next task is we're going to do a pipe for that pressure gauge there. So first of all, I used my little pokey stick to put a little dimple in there. Then I drilled through with my 0.5mm drill. Then I bent up into this little sort of S shape, a little bit of wire, and that's going to go in. Oh yeah, another thing I did forget to say actually, this rib here I have taken a little nick out with the knife so that the wire will come up that side and it will lay across the top of there. That's the plan. So with any luck we can put that in there. Obviously I need to get a little bit of adhesive in there, but that will sit like that. I'm going to do that off camera because it's a bit springy. The end of this pipe just needs to stop just short of this rib. It's going to be covered over by the down pipe that's going to go on top. I'm going to fit that. Again, I'll probably do that off camera, but in essence it should go, if I've done it right, it should go in the top there and come down just this side here. Might need a little bit of tweaking. Just for your own convenience, you might want to also take just a little notch out of both of those two webs there. It probably isn't prototypical, but it will help the pipe fit in a little bit better. You also might need to add a slight curve to the pipe just to get the most out of it. I'm going to have to tweak the jig that I've made because it isn't actually quite right. But once you've bent it up, it should sit something like that. I'm going to glue that in now. When it's done, that pipe should just butt up against that one there, or even be slightly behind it will be fine. The last modifications before moving back and just carrying on building the kit as per the instructions is to add a couple of little valves. I've got a slightly larger valve there and two slightly smaller valves that I'm going to place over there. Now I know that's not the correct positions as per photographs on Paul Bartlett's website, but this framework is quite different than how it looks on Paul Bartlett's website, so I'm assuming it's a bit of a compromise by Dapol, and it's going to be a bit more of a compromise by me. Oh, that's two done. I've done the big one and I've done one of the small ones. The other small one has disappeared off to infinity and beyond, so I need to laser cut another one of those before we can complete this. So now it's just a case of cutting all the remainder parts off the sprues and cleaning them up and fitting them as per the instructions. I'll catch you after I've done that. So that's all the bits attached to the model now. We can see we've got all the brake gear, brake levers. Did manage to snap one of them, but I've glued it back together. We've got the buffers, the hook and chain. We've got vacuum pipes, or air brakes, I don't know, vacuum pipe I presume. We've got, I did put on the missing little hand wheel. Admittedly I laser cut the wrong size, so this one's a bit smaller. But like I say, I'm not too worried about having stuff totally prototypical. As long as it gives an impression of the prototype, that is about all that's as far as I'm willing to go. So that's done. Everything else on the actual hopper is all done. You can see the little tiny pipe going up to the pressure gauge. So I'm not going to assemble these together yet, because my plan is to paint them separately, or at least prime them separately. So the hopper will be primed red, and the webs will be primed red, but the actual rest of the chassis will be primed black. So I'm now going to draw up some masks that I can use to hopefully just sort of plop down on top, and then hopefully spray the top red, and then same again for the bottom, have it upside down, and I can spray everything there, and with any luck try and keep the black approximately where it needs to be. It doesn't matter, it's only the primer, but let's try and do a half decent job. That's the kind of thing we're kind of looking for. You know, the primer will be where the red primer will be where the brown is, and the black primer will be where the black is. Right. Not sure whether I actually showed that. Yeah, I did actually. Hopefully I got that in the camera, otherwise I'll have to cut that out. Right, and that will do for the moment. And just for the sake of Chet and Giselle, I just thought I would assemble this, and you can get an idea of how it's looking if it doesn't wobble about too much when I'm turning it round on the little turntable. Just try and get a little bit more light on it. So it hasn't got the boards on the side. Not sure what I'll do about those, whether I will put those on the finished one or not, but either way it all needs to be painted first before those go on. They can be painted afterwards. Oh, focusing failed. Let's try and get the focusing on. Hopefully you can see the little lamp brackets there. You can see the little control levers. I presume they open some kind of valve or something. You can see the pipe work. You can see the little valves, the little handles on the side, and you can see the handles up there. Again, I haven't got the ladder on yet. The ladder will go on later once it's all fully painted. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be painting of it.